Hello, my fellow hot runners. Today we will be continuing where we left off on our last episode. We are going to cover how to profile regulars in your player pool and how to play against them in the grand scheme of things. This will help you a lot when you decide whether to play more aggressive or passive and give rope to your villains. If you haven't seen our first two episodes, I will highly recommend doing so because we're going to keep layering new information on top of the knowledge we already have from previous episodes. So, to kick things off, we're going to look at the two main profiles I have for regulars in the lower stakes. So, the main distinction will be between blue liners and red liners. So, blue liners will usually have stats similar to this on the screen. So the VPIP will be something around 20, the PFR will be around like 18, and the free bet stat will be around 8%. And most importantly, their one win so flop, which will be something around 48. So this specific statistic is indicating this regular is mostly winning hands when they go to showdown. Hence why I'm also calling them blue liners. Because when you look at the graph, there are usually 4 different lines people are paying attention to. And I will try and illustrate this with my own personal graph right now. So the blue line here on this graph is just showing how much money you win when the cards are turned face up on the river, or after the river rather. The red line indicates just when you win money, when you fold out better hands and the hand doesn't go to showdown, which means you're kind of aggressive. Here in this graph, which is my own one, you just see like I'm winning with both lines kind of. So I know when I want to go to showdown and I know when I want to put pressure. And the green line is basically indicating the money won in general. And the yellow line is just showing what should be your winnings. So when you run perfectly, so no luck and no misfortune, I guess, then you would be around that. So in this case, green and yellow line are basically break even, and there was no luck or misfortune involved. So let's get back to how blue liners work. So in general, the blue liners will be a shocker to you. Their blue line will go up, but the red line is going down. So basically, they're not putting enough pressure post flop. They will be very passive in general, and this is also how I would recognize them. So one main trait the blue liners have is overfolding. So they usually won't go to showdown as often because they're not really scared that they get bluffed a lot. So they are just mucking their hands in the small pots a lot. They say like, I don't care, losing the small pots. And this is also where we can be more aggressive against them. And on the flip side, when they're usually betting, it's very equity based and usually very strong range. So on the turn, for example, when we have like a lot of draws possible, yes, they will find all of the equity barrels. So this is where we can also call more often. But on the rivers, usually they will give up, and this is where we usually want to overfold. So turn, we can easily just call and see a river when there's a lot of draws possible, and on the rivers we just want to muck our hand if they continue with aggression. So I have an illustration here, which will be our normal strategy on this board. This is the Queen 9-6 board, two-tone. And also when we're looking at the big blinds response, is we will see quite good raise percentage of like 11.7%. So the blue liners, as mentioned, are also probably not putting enough pressure with check raises, and I have like node locked the big blind's response to a little bit lower raise frequencies, which will be most of the guys doing so, because I don't think everybody is folding is finding the correct raise frequencies. So what this does, it changes our approach kind of to the game, and you can see it here. I didn't node lock this. This is the GTO kind of approach now. So when our villains are under raising the flop, we therefore are able to just range bet. And this is just under raising. We didn't put in any overfolding. So as you can see, when our opponents are doing something wrong, the outcome will be drastic. So that's why also a lot of people, including myself, are advocating for like a more simple approach. And we can also look at the flip side of things, which will be the redliners, right? So the redliners have different stats, which will be the VPIPs, as you can see here, will be like 26, the PFR will be like 24, and their free bet stat will be around 15%, maybe less, maybe more. And the main difference here will be the one man so flop, which is 54. So these guys usually like to put a lot of pressure. They are relentless with their bets. They're betting way too much most of the time. So these are the guys that we want to give a lot of rope. And also with the small sizings, usually these sizings, the small range bets, are what redliners are going to attack with frequent raises. So I also have the solution here for if we node lock to range bet and we let our GTO friend adjust accordingly, we can see the raises are quite hefty, right? If we compare this to the normal solution, this is a double the increase basically. So this is also what's sometimes happening in reality against those aggressive guys. They will take anything they can find, any gut shot, any open ender, any flush draw basically. They will try and put pressure, which they still shouldn't be, right? Like if we look at our draws, we're not supposed to go with every of them.
And if you know that someone is aggressive and re-raising much on the flop, or raising you, how could you adjust to that?
Good question. So we're also gonna take a look here in the GTO wizard here. We're just gonna play the game here. As you can see, we're not really folding any top pairs, pretty much. The problem is we get here with so much of our range that we have to kind of like filter, and we don't really want to continue with air. So there's no reason now that we are getting attacked. We are continuing with our air hands, so we are mainly looking for draws basically. As you can see, also some gut shots are starting to fold out, which is perfectly fine to fold them out.
And also, if you know that they almost raise all of their draws, then you can call more of them probably, right?
Yeah, like exactly that's what's gonna happen in reality. I think the redliners are usually finding more draws rather than the thin value raises, I guess. Like they raise any two pair, which is fine. And I don't think they will be raising queen 10 most of the time for value. They will definitely find king queen and ace queen more often. But I would guess they're more on the draw heavy side when they raise here.
Okay.
So when we look at the response here, when we get raised, which is also a quite hefty raise. It's not always that we see such a big raise. What I would do in reality against those aggressive guys, I would just call basically like any pair to the board, which means we're also blocking their value combinations, because when we look at what our opponent's most likely value is usually those two pairs, and if we have a pair to the board, we are also blocking those potential two pair combinations, which therefore means it's more likely he has a draw. And it's also good if we're thinking about unblocking stuff. For example, if we don't have a spade in our hand, it's even better, because then our opponent has all the flush draws available to them, which means he's even more likely to have a bluff. And what's going to happen is, I think most people, or most of the time, redliners are also giving up on the turn when they don't improve. Say, for example, they find a random bluff like 7-5 of hearts, and they don't improve with another heart, then some of the time, or most of the time, I think they will give up. And if they don't give up the turn, they might give up the river. So in this case, stationing down will be highly beneficial to you. Also, one more thing to add, if we're thinking about playing against the redliners, pre-flop, we are also trying to take out all of the 0 EV opens, for example, and also 0 EV defense. So what that means is we're just going to leave out the worst parts of our ranges and not defend them, because we know we get a lot of aggression post-flop. So this is where we are starting the exploit, kind of. It already starts pre-flop. We're by just leaving out all of the stuff that is trash anyways, and is making no money in theory, so it won't be making any more money when we're facing a lot of aggression anyways. And one thing to mention is, of course, we're range betting here, right, against the redliners. But if we know we're facing a lot of aggression, what we can do is we can just take out all of the stuff that is not good when facing aggression and don't bet them. So this is also an exploit we can do, because even though the small sizing like looks range betty, we can just make it polar, so we're not betting our shit that we don't want to bet, and we don't want to face aggression. And that's also one thing you can try and do. Also worth mentioning, if we do see a range bet as well, then we can also use this strategy, and I think it will be very good, and over raising against the range bets will be very good, and just finding all of the possible backdoor draws, gut shots, open-enders, flush draws. Anything we can find, I think, is good enough to raise. And also sometimes a little bit thinner for value. For example, as we can see here, the ace queen, we should go always. The king queen, we can raise always. Queen jack probably as well. And even like a queen 10, we can mix like 50-50 or something like that. Alright, this will also be the end of today's video. Also, if you made it this far into the video, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment any questions on the topics mentioned in this video down below. And I'll hope to see you in our next video.